Hi, I'm Peter. I'm the manager of StudioMe. Today, we've got another fantastic episode for you at the StudioMEcast right here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Today, I'm going to be speaking with a writer, not just a writer, a director, and of course, a producer. But that might have sounded like three people. No, it's just one very talented person who I was honored to meet at the Cannes Film Festival. I'm never going to get tired of saying that. You hear me mention it every episode. But sat down, met this person, and after a few minutes of talking with them, I was like, you have got to be on the podcast. So I'm going to introduce some more things about them, but writer, director, producer, this is Alexis. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. It's wonderful to actually see you now after Cannes is gone, and it was such a wonderful experience being there again.
Absolutely.
And meeting you.
You too. I remember it was the last day of the festival, and a lot of the networking had sort of toned down. You know, the festival sort of tends to like taper off, I think, toward the end. That was at least my experience that time. And we were in the American Pavilion, and we just started chatting, and very soon I found out it was your 10th time being there. And so I just started asking you, like, what are you here for? Why do you keep coming back? Like, I mean, it's fun, but what do you hope to accomplish? And a lot of our conversation today, everybody, is going to be about just, you know, once you've made a film, what do you want to do with it? So, Alexis, you directed The Gesture and the Word, which is a 20-minute short film, which if you want to watch it, audience, before you hear this conversation, just check the description below. You'll find a link there. And if you're interested in learning about the artistic side or like the more production side of this project, there's a wonderful podcast where she answers all these wonderful questions about the production. It's really good, and we have a link to that in the description below as well. But I don't want to cover the same territory because it was done so well before. We're going to take the next step here and talk more about where this film has gone and what you do at Cannes when you're there and the kind of moves you've been making to get your film out there. Starting with you, up to this moment, the film has been accepted to 87 film festivals, and that number is still going up. And you have garnered, at this moment, 65 awards for that same. This is all one film, everybody, and those are some pretty. Those aren't rookie numbers. Okay, that's pretty good. I say as a gross understatement. And I want to start with that, and we're going to go into distribution. But with your festival run, how many festivals did you apply to? Are you still applying to festivals? Like, how did you make this happen?
Actually, I work with a woman by the name of Rebecca Louisa Smith. She is also known as the Film Festival Doctor. She's amazing. She's originally from London, but she lives in Texas at the moment. And I hired her over the last several years to do my festival campaign for The Gesture and the Word. So she is the person who goes out there. She doesn't just submit to festivals. She doesn't just, we could all do that as filmmakers. We don't, it's Film Freeway, all these sort of avenues, we can do that. She actually goes out there and what is the word? It like lobbies for your film. She goes out there, talks to the festival people, tells them that the film's been submitted. She is someone who connects you. She's a connector. She connected me with my poster designer who did the second poster we had. This person was one of the greatest and is one of the greatest assets I have as not just a short filmmaker, but also a filmmaker who's going on to do her feature film, her first feature film.
That's fantastic. Yeah, that's, you hear about people like pitching films or lobbying or managing or like running, like there's a whole other part of the industry that's all about getting the film out there, whether that's marketing or like this person that you work with on this as well. So you get into the film festivals, like that's a big part of it. Obviously, you have to be good to get in, but it's like you said. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've applied to Film Freeway, and I've gotten into a lot of festivals, I don't mind saying, but there's every once in a while you see like a sort of like a type, by type of film I don't mean like a genre in specific, but like, you know, you
Yeah.
see there's like almost at a certain level where they're working with actors who have been in more higher profile
Yes.
productions. Like maybe they're not like an A-list star, but they have
Yes.
credits. Like you recognize these people a lot of the time, and like they're professional actors who do this all the time. And a lot of those, you see, like there's just little clues that are like, huh, there's something that is helping this film go.
I think
Is it
it
the
is.
stars? And that's certainly part of it, I'm sure, with helping to like uh, lobby for the film as well. It's like it's not just like, hey, I'm friends, I imagine, you know, with these people. They also bring up the attributes that help the film stand out. And that may be a leading question, but am I right about that?
I think that I was very lucky to have my five main characters, my five main actors are all exceptional. And they've all done great work. We've had actors who've worked with David Lynch, Gregor Rocky. We have Paul Dooley, who has done, I think, something like 200 projects. He's worked with Bob Altman several times, Christopher Guest. You have James Michael Tyler, who played the lead role, who was known for the TV show Friends. Yes, it helps to have these actors that have clout, but you're also hiring people because you know they will deliver. And that's a big thing where you see filmmakers, young filmmakers that are like, well, I can't get, so and so in my movie. What do I like? Is my movie gonna somehow not have the impact that a film like mine would have? No, get good actors. I think that's the main thing. And having someone like a Paul Dooley, you know that he's going to give you gold. But I think above a name is how good your actors are. That is the key. Beyond a name.
Absolutely. I can totally agree. You don't want to skimp out on the performances of like the characters, you know, for like,
No.
and a lot of that also, you've talked about this before, how like, you know, there's the talent side of it, but there's this, you know, it's also wrapped up in like when you have a budget and you're hiring people, there's other things that just don't go wrong as much, like locations don't fall through as much, people don't
Yeah.
not show up as much. You had quite a budget for this film.
Yes.
You want to talk about that a little bit and how that
Oh
helped?
wow. I had over $100,000. I'm not going to say exactly how much. It's a little over 100,000. My mother and I put together a little nest egg for us to do the feature because she's the short film. I mean, she's my executive producer, but it does give you that stability, that safety net. I remember once I was sitting, I had done a short film in like 2007. It was my first short film I did after going to Emerson in Boston. And someone was like, oh, how much was your short? And at that time, my short was about $40,000. And she actually told me, oh, I did my short for free. And then the person next to me who had worked with me goes, yeah, but she paid all of us. I think that that's a huge thing that I'm proud of, is that I pay everyone I work with. If you do the job, if you do it well, even if you don't do it well, but if you do the job, you get paid by me. And I think that that is part of having that sort of budget. You're treating your short like a feature film. People saw the set, thought we were doing a low budget feature because we had trailers, we had honey wagons, we had, trucks. It looked like a low budget feature. And I think budget has a lot to do with it. It gives you, I mean, everyone knows what the best thing to help your crew with is. It's food, craft service, a good caterer. If you're not treating your crew with the respect, they're not going to show up. They're not going to be reliable. And when you have that sort of budget, you also get the reliable crew that like have worked on major productions, have had 20, 30, 40 years of experience. Our crew wasn't a bunch of college students. And don't get me wrong, I've been that college student. Some of these kids are so gifted right out of graduation. But I had men and women on my set that were truly experienced filmmakers. And that only makes my job much easier. but also makes me better. I think a lot of filmmakers are like, oh, I've got this budget, or I they're too afraid of sharing the credit. And with that budget, I got people that I trusted that I could share credit with, and people I believed in and believed in me.
And I've seen that even just with the other podcast that I mentioned before. Like, you're talking about the people on crew, you're talking about like all the people you're collaborating with. Like, you're certainly not afraid to share the credit, which I think is
No,
a noble thing. So a number somewhat a bit above $100,000, and you had, I believe it was 6 days of shooting, right?
yes, 6 days of shooting,
Now that is
something
a
like 8 locations, 6 locations, something crazy like that.
and it's for a sizable short. Like 20 minutes is pretty like toward the extension of what most people
Yeah,
consider a short. Not necessarily most. Like
yeah,
some say up to 45 minutes,
yeah.
but 20 minutes. That's pretty impressive. So a 20-minute short shot with 6 days of filming. And those were all subsequent days. That wasn't stretched over a larger period of time, correct?
No, it was 6 days in a row. God, that was exhausting by day 5 or 6. And we did 12-hour days. We try to stay within the 12-hour days. Sometimes we went an hour or so over with like closing things down, but we really try to stay within that time frame. So it was fast shooting, very fast shooting.
A lot of people know like filmmaking can be very expensive and quick and all that, but I think just being able to see, like, when people watch this film and also are able to understand in 6 days this costs a bit over $100,000. It just like kind of puts things into perspective in a cool way of like, because when people hear, I think almost that's more easy to understand than a feature film where someone says, "Oh, this was $300 million." It's like, I don't even know what that means, like,
No, no.
so let me like, and I'm going through this to give context to the type of film
Mhm.
we're talking about, how it went down, and also to move this conversation forward toward like where this film went and stuff.
Yeah.
Was that budget the did that include the pre-production, like the actual creation of the
Yes.
film? Did
No.
that include did that include any of the back end costs for getting the film out there, such as with your colleague for okay, so that's the other thing about the film, right? Is to
Yeah.
make the film costs over $100,000, but then this film has gone on to a lot of things, and that costs more after the fact. Did you have a
Yes.
budget in mind for that while you were creating the film?
I would now, since I've experienced it with my next film, but this time I was like, I had done a short film and gone to a couple festivals because we did it ourselves, but having Rebecca on board, you don't exactly, having never done it before, you're kind of lost on the budget. You can kind of be like, well, I don't want to spend this much money, or I don't want to go over it. So you really have to learn along the way. And it's been a lot of me going, all right, my savings, I want to keep pushing the movie. The movie is doing well. So at the beginning I was like, oh, I can put a little bit of money. So I didn't really have a budget, but I had savings enough to be like, okay, it's doing really well. It's getting festivals, it's getting awards. I can say this, I could have owned a house based on what I've put into this movie. I could have put a down payment. I spent it on my career. And I wouldn't say to someone, don't have a budget for the distribution, but I didn't know what that would look like. So if anyone's listening to this, learn from me. Go to Rebecca, go online, look at distribution, look at the cost of these festivals. What festivals do you want to go to? And also, I went to big festivals that were Oscar qualifiers, like Cleveland and Holly Shorts and LA Shorts. I went to festivals that are amazing, like Cordillera, and I've been to Rhode Island International on another film, Sarasota Film Festival, and then I've gone to smaller ones that are maybe a year or two in the making that were still absolutely wonderful to us. So a lot of people, in regards to your distribution and your budget for that, say, I'm only going to do these 9 film festivals. Well, you may not get into those 9 film festivals, or you may get into those 9 film festivals like Rebecca and Toronto and all these festivals can. Don't be shy of the small ones, because guess what? That one person might be at that festival that goes, I love this film, and then shows it to all their friends. You never know. So back to the concept of budget, next time around, I'll know more. Experience gives you a lot of education. And I'm very fortunate to have my little nest egg. But now I'm never going to own a house.
Well, who knows? Because you say you spent this on your film, but or you spent this on your career, but another way of looking at this that isn't, and this isn't just words, but you're investing in your career. Yes. And you're already seeing a big response to this investment. And it's like looking at the big picture down the road and how like the returns that are like the potential returns that still have yet to be realized. Yeah. Even if you look at the big picture, even if it's not, it's not you become a millionaire with this film, but that helps you get to the next one.
Yes.
Right. And we'll talk about the 100%. Next one in a second here. But with what you're saying with like, having to figure this out as you go, and there's a little, this isn't always true of a writer, director, producer on every project, but I'm getting a bunch of hints here that you've had to figure out a lot of this stuff. Like you haven't been working with a mentor necessarily. Like like this is something that you've gotten into more on your own, it seems like.
Well, yes and no. First off, like mentors, I worked in the assistant directing department on many movies, from like War of the Worlds to Elizabethtown to all these films. Those ADs and those directors that I watched, like Cameron Crowe, were my mentors. I got to learn from the best as a director in regards to being on set and how to treat your cast, your crew, how to really take responsibility for what your career is going to be for other people, the benefit of other people, how you treat other people. I did in many ways start out on my own without like having that safety net, but my great grandfather was in the movie industry. He was a movie theater owner in Hollywood. My grandmother went to the Pasadena Playhouse, but quit to marry my grandfather and have my mother. My grandfather was an independent documentary filmmaker who did short films for art galleries. I am not one to say that I didn't have some sort of foundation. I grew up with my parents, or rather my grandmother, my mother, and my grandfather talking about film in a way that it was just natural. It wasn't this, wow, like there's film out there, like the entertainment industry is so magical. That was realistic to me. So I think that you have all these young filmmakers that come into this world, into LA, and it's like, wow, this is crazy. I come from a place that this is a foreign world. I didn't have that. I had this as being a possibility. And I think that's why I have the mentality I have, because it was always a possibility. You could go to the military, you could become a teacher, you could become a filmmaker.
That's really cool that it's almost like this, not almost, there's an element of family tradition going on here. And whenever someone says their grandfather was in film, well, if you put that on the timeline of how long cinema has really been around, that's like, oh yeah, you're part of the family of, ancient katana makers. Like it goes back pretty far in the, art form.
My family came to Hollywood in 1921.
Oh, wow. So yeah, they could have been like, there's like the degree of separation between that and the start of Hollywood, like the American, at least even the American film industry. Okay. That was in its actual infancy there. That's crazy. Yeah. So Well, that's really cool that you have that background. But when it comes to, and also, of course, your work on Elizabethtown, War of the Worlds, and you've also, this is another thing. If y'all didn't get the clue from Alexis having been to Cannes 10 times, this isn't like she just woke up and decided to, spend $100,000 on a passion project. It's like, this is what a career has built up to at this point. And while there's always things to figure out and it's expensive, these are calculated investments. And so when it comes to the marketing of your film, where you said, like, with that, you weren't exactly sure how much that was going to cost, was that something that you were able to come up with a budget, but like after you finished the film, were you able to come up with a marketing budget, or did you decide how much you would spend on that, or did you just kind of keep paying out as the expenses came up? What was sort of
a little bit of both. I can't say what I paid Rebecca. That would be disrespectful to her.
Of course, absolutely.
I saw what Rebecca would be and how much she would be a blessing for the film. And then I sat back and I was like, can I afford this? And so, of course, you're going to do things where you're like, okay, I'm going to do a budget. And then as you get to a certain point, you reassess that budget, reassess the amount of time that you're going to be putting into it. And yes, there's a lot of things where I go, okay, I want to do X, Y, and Z. Got to work some more, got to do more savings, got to get myself to a place where I can afford to then make additional decisions that will cost something.
I'm going to ask this because I'm sure any young, hungry filmmaker who has heard about this, Rebecca, I'm going to ask a couple questions. Obviously, not talking about the rate, but if someone's like, oh, this sounds like it, this is exactly what I need. I need someone, I need Rebecca, I've got a film, I need to get out there. I don't want to just, throw a lot of money at Film Freeway. I want to have a plan and work with someone who's professional at this. Yeah. Is the process for that, you just reach out to her, or do you send them does she watch the film first? Is there is that even a process of probably, I would imagine she has some type of rate for even just considering the project at this point. Is that accurate?
Because I've seen several people, I can't remember that in regards to Rebecca, but she's so supportive and so honest that she'll watch your film, give you feedback, and then give you options at which you can choose what level of support you want from her. She's not just one avenue. Rebecca really gives you options based on what you can afford. And she is, again, very honest and very supportive.
Fantastic. Yeah. And just one more question. I feel like I should get Rebecca on this show at some point.
You should get Rebecca. Film Festival Doctor, Rebecca Louisa Smith. Get her on. She's amazing.
I will do my best. That would be awesome. There's, so I'll save some of the budding questions I have for her, because this is about you today. And I want to also ask, when it comes, does Rebecca have a certain type of film she promotes? Is it it could be any genre, or is there any type of thing that does she have a preference for that kind of thing?
I can't speak for her, but I know that she has people that are horror film directors. She has me, who I have The Gesture and the Word, which is a romantic drama. I have a feature that I'm working on called The Burden of Light, which is a historical romantic drama. And then I've got a documentary about my father, which is far more a story about what war does to someone, what trauma does to someone. And the thing about my father is people would joke that he was James Bond, because he was a military officer that went overseas to be an attaché in the USSR, and then the USSR fell. And he was also in a lot of different places where the country would fall, and the joke was, send my dad somewhere if you want the country to fall. She has, I think, a preference for good work. She has a preference for supporting talent that is there. She is no nonsense, but extremely supportive and extremely knowledgeable in her field. I hope that answers the question.
Well, that's a fantastic answer, and we got a little glimpse into Alexis' family history there as well, which I was privileged to learn a little bit about. And whenever you're ready to talk to more people about the documentary that you're putting together, I'd love to have you on and talk about that, because it's very like interesting, dramatic, exciting history, and it's a personal family history as well. And having a documentary feature, potentially series, about that kind of thing is right up my alley for interests. I'd love to talk with you more about it. But let's continue on with the sort of the trajectory we've been going on here, where we've set up the film, we've talked a bit about the back end of your short, and just another thing I wanted to say about your short really quick. 6 days of filming for a 20-minute short, and one of the things that's really that I appreciated about it on a technical level was, which like supports the story, is it's this romantic drama. And although it seems like, oh, that's a lot of work for 6 days and all that, which it is, but the film doesn't feel, the making of the film does not feel rushed. All right, it doesn't feel like everybody's biting their nails or anything like behind the scenes. It's like the things that like the scenes don't feel rushed. They take the time that the story requires, and that's something that I know like every film, like time is your enemy and everything, but it does but that aspect of the film doesn't show on screen. It looks like it looks like it came out the way it intended. It, like the tone and the movement of the story and the rhythm matches on a technical level. So if I could just put that little, appreciation in there for that, go watch the film, people. It's nice. So check it out. See what we're talking about here. All right. So, but yeah, so we've gone through this. And we've learned a bit about the film festival circuit and some of the things that can be done about that, especially with a superstar like Rebecca. Now, I want to talk about how the types of meetings you got into at Cannes. Because when you go to Cannes, you hear about people having meetings with distributors and production companies and all kind of stuff. And I know that you were able to set up a bunch in advance of the festival, which is something I heard some people say, which is, we planned this meeting like months, at least months in advance before we talk to them. And sometimes it's for a film that's been finished, and sometimes it's for one that hasn't been shot yet. Was this your first time setting up these types of meetings with interested parties at Cannes?
No, it wasn't. Over the years, I've had different ways of meeting people. A lot of Cannes, I always call it like a filmmaker summer camp. It's like the most intense summer camp because, like you were saying, at the end of the festival, it kind of dissipates. So the first week and a half is really the time where everyone's really there. And over the years and this year, you can find and meet people very differently. Sitting down at a bar, you turn to your left, and the person happens to work at Netflix. And you start talking. Sometimes the person's like, nice to meet you, walks out. Next time, the guy might go, hey, do you have a card? That sounds like an interesting project. Would love to keep in touch. And sometimes you can meet someone and they're like, you should meet my wife. She just did X film. And you're like, oh my God. And then you go meet that person. There's ways in which I was at the producers workshop, I think in 2012, 2013. It's not the network, it's the workshop for producers that are a little bit more green than the ones that are in the network. And I remember going up to a producer that was there speaking to us. He was a pretty big French producer. And I got his card because he was just handing out cards. And I was like, oh, nice to meet you. And then I called him like that afternoon, he had his cell phone or some number, got him, and he goes, I can meet you at the Grand, which is one of the hotels, because we all meet at hotels, tomorrow at 11. Okay. And I pitched my film, and it wasn't his sort of thing, but you can do that where this guy was like, okay. I've been emailed people have emailed me, and I remember one guy had a stage in Belgium or something like that. And then we met, and he actually had me send a script to him. And he said, yeah, it wasn't for him because not everyone wants to do World War II romantic dramas.
Fools.
But he was still like, hey, huh?
I said fools. The fools.
Fools. But they email me, you email them through Sanando, which is if you have these certain levels of badges at Cannes. You have the filmmaker badge, which is very simple. Anyone can get it. I believe it's free. Then you get a note. Not anyone can just go to Cannes. Like a lot of people are like, I want to go to Cannes with you. And I'm like, they will really look at what you've done. As you know, you have to be vetted to be allowed to even go. Then you have another badge, which is the Marché badge, which will give you way more access. And that will give you Sanando. And then they have the Platinum badge, and then there's the badge where people get that are very famous, and they have films at the festival. For many years, I've had the Marché badge. This year, I had the Platinum badge. But it gives you Sanando, and on it, you have every single person that is signed up for the festival online. And you have access to who's going to be there. You have access to their addresses. Not everyone uses it to the way it could be used, but you can get in touch with people, email them, and then have those meetings set up. Of course, you don't want, a lot of filmmakers are like, I'll just send the script. No. There's certain ways in which you have to do things in order for them to feel comfortable seeing you, meeting you. You might give them a pitch or say, as I did this year, hi, I'm a female filmmaker. I see you're a female producer. Would love to meet you. I'm working on several things. Would you be available? It's as simple as that. It can be a meet and greet. It could be, hey, I'm doing a feature film. I'd love to talk to you because I saw you did X, Y, and Z, and I'm working on this. Check out my short that I did that has done very well. It's a very careful sort of place to try to reach out to people. You have to know what's too little, too much. I've met, and of course through Rebecca, she's introduced me to people. Someone else will say, hey, meet this person. I went to lunch with someone who was part of a French distribution company. He was amazing. That was because a friend of mine's like, I'm going to lunch with my friend. And he spent 2 hours talking to me about distribution. It was like a master's class in information.
That's awesome. I didn't know about the Platinum badge thing, which I was like, oh, well, who are you even reaching out to? But it's like, that sounds almost like the golden ticket of at least knowing, like, as you said, who's going to be there, contact information. And then it's up to you to figure out how to approach them, and then it's on them to see if they respond at all. That sounds like something that sometimes when filmmakers get a manager or something, that a manager might sometimes handle that kind of thing. But you handled that yourself.
I handled it myself, and I don't have a manager at the moment, but I had someone who was like, hey, if you need to use me, like, I'll support you while you're at Cannes. And I'm talking to her about possibly going with her. But yeah, I handled it all by myself. I have an amazing assistant, Sarah, who really helps me figure out who to talk to, who to reach out to. But a lot of it was self-generated.
There are things involved with filmmaking where, you've got your professionals who do this all the time, and that weight of experience is such a big deal. But also there is still, it's kind of encouraging to know that there is sometimes almost the scrappy side of filmmaking where it's like you and your friends and family can like band together and make something incredible happen. So the fact that your friend said, like, I would love to support you in this while you're at Cannes is just, such a big thing. That's like,
it's true.
Yeah, absolutely. So
that is true.
That's an encouraging thing.
Yeah, no, and it is a scrappy sort of thing where I don't have that sort of thing where you go like there's a lot of people that go to Cannes that have their tuxedos, that have their dresses, that are like, I'm going to go to see the movies. I'm one of those people that rarely sees many of the movies at Cannes. I don't go watch them. And I had access to Maverick, and I had access to all that, and I had the ticket for Maverick. I could have pushed the button. I had that access. I chose not to because I wanted to meet people. I want to talk to people. There are different reasons why people go to Cannes, and my reason is I want to meet people. I want to talk to people. I want to meet the people that are going to get in that boat with me and be scrappy. Like, you are right. Like, filmmaking is about friendship, and you have to be careful also with the people you let in the boat, because there's a lot of people in this world that aren't there for your best interest. So you have to watch your back in this industry more than I think a lot of other industries.
Would you be comfortable giving a possibly nameless example of that kind of thing that people could look out for?
No, I'm not allowed to talk about it.
All right, no problem.
Like
I understand.
law-wise.
All right. Oh, exciting. Well, everybody, you'll just have to meet Alexis sometime at Cannes and see if you can get it out of her. But we'll just let you know. But all right, so yeah, it's. I think you and I'm finding that in this conversation that there's a lot of things you're saying that are making me go, oh, we have some things in common here. Even just like the approach we had for Cannes, even though it was my first time. All right, I wanted to go to at least one red carpet premiere at the Palais. Like the experience of that, you know, just going to the holy land of film and seeing where film was crucified. I don't know where this analogy is going, but either way, going to see the red carpet by which all others are referring to and walking on it, even if it's just the slightly darker side, on the side that the stars don't walk on, you know, but and being in there and seeing a film. And I got to do that, I think, the first night I was there. It was amazing. And I was just
it's always fun to do that.
Yeah, and it's also like, it's one of those things that kind of lets me know, like, just, you know, just from the, like, the whole reason why, like, I was able to go to Cannes and everything, it was a really affirming moment that I was like, oh, I'm seeing signs that I'm on the right track here. Like, I'm not tone deaf to how everything works, you know? And that was one of my takeaways from Cannes was, all right, I'm in the right place. I'm headed in the right direction, and there's a million ways to get to where you want to be. Although, as I will try to remind everybody, if you spend all of your time only focusing on where you want to be, you won't enjoy where you are and what you're doing while you're doing it. So make sure to enjoy the journey as well. It's fine to have a destination, but you know, if you don't enjoy it the entire time you're going on there, the chances are that you're going to be satisfied with that fountain of youth at the end. Are well, you know, everybody's different, I guess, but that's how I fall on the line so far. And I should know. I'm almost 30. But the
you are young compared to me.
That's all right. But I'm learning a lot more from you than you are from me, so it's working out. So we've got. I want to talk a bit more about some of this because like when I wanted to go see one screening at least, and then the rest of the time I was just like a lot of these films I'm going to be able to see at some point. And as cool as it would be to say, I saw this in Cannes. Like, if I could have seen Elvis there, I would have done it. Or Maverick, I probably would have done it. I arrived after Maverick showed up. But, for, like, networking and meeting people. And the thing that blew my mind about Cannes was how much just being there is actually an important factor. Like in the world of social media, like we're talking virtually right now. You're in California, all right? I'm in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. But with actually being there in Cannes, and like you said, you eat somewhere and you turn to the side and you just start talking to somebody, and it turns out they run locations in London like historical locations. And there's that connection now. It's like a lot of people wonder, like, okay, like, should I Google people who have locations? It's like, all right, yeah, you're not going to find nothing by doing that, hopefully, if you do it enough. But being there, talking to the people who are really doing it, and you never know who you're going to run into at Cannes,
No, you don't.
by the way, because everybody knows what Brad Pitt looks like, but not everybody knows what an executive producer of Terminator 2 looks like. All right.
No.
And which one of those is gonna potentially, depending at what level you're at, actually be able to, I mean, it would be awesome to meet Brad Pitt, don't get me wrong. But in the career side of things, it's like, as far as it's the cliche of like running up to a famous actor and throwing your screenplay at them and hoping they go,
oh yeah,
you're the first passionate person about film I've ever met. Give the kid a picture. Like, that's not what happens, you know? It's like, and if it does happen ever, it's still not something to bet on. You know, that's not the way to operate. So with these meetings that you had set up, what types were these for? Promoting your short film or your future projects, or both?
Well, because, and I can't say who it is yet because we're still working on the contract. Through Rebecca, I was able to get distribution for my film.
Congratulations.
So, thank you.
Everybody applaud, adding applaud in post. Well done. That's a huge thing.
No, it's wonderful because you're like, my short film is going to be seen overseas. What? And that it was liked enough. It's again, it's that sort of thing that as you're moving along in your career, it's like going to Cannes and being like, I'm here, I've made the next step that's correct. After doing something and working at something so long and having that little like positive thing at the end of it, you're like, okay, keep going, like keep moving. But in regards to meeting people in Cannes, in regards to the short versus the future stuff, it was more about, actually this year was a lot about just meeting people and meeting a lot of women that were in the industry and being a support network. I think this year for me has really been about a support network. And yes, I have my short, my feature script going out into festivals. I'm pitching my documentary in a week or two. As a filmmaker, especially in Los Angeles, it can be very lonely. You throw a rock out in LA, everyone's making a film in some manner, director, actor, writer, producer, whatever. It can be very lonely as a filmmaker. So going to Cannes, yes, you can meet a lot of people that can make your dreams come true because they can give you that check. They can get the producing going on. But as you're going along that road, you also need to find that base of friends that are going to be there when you're at the lowest point in your career, that are going to say, hey, can you read my script and give me notes? Or I just had a get together on Sunday with a bunch of the filmmakers I met at Cannes who are living in LA. And I had a couple other filmmakers from other festivals that I met along the way join us. And we talked about, you know, actually one of our conversations is like, do you do another short or do you do a feature? What's the next project you do? When you are at a certain place in your career, what is the next project? And one of them said, I'd rather make a low budget feature than a high budget short now, because I've done the high budget short. And being in Cannes, being with these people, as you know, being at the American Pavilion, being at the different bars and hotels, all these conversations really help you solidify or get ideas about what your next move is going to be. You never know, someone might go, hey, I want to do this film. You should talk to that person. That happens a lot at Cannes. You should talk to that person. That person can make your movie happen, or that person is the locations person from Thailand. Oh, you should meet that person. Cannes isn't just about going to the movies and setting up those meetings. It's about seeing what's going to come out of it just organically. I think, because I wasn't sure about what my next project really would be until recently. Even when I was at Cannes, I was not sure what my next project would be. And that's something also with filmmakers. Sometimes we do a project and we're like, uh, and you might have 5 different scripts, but you're like, which baby gets born first? And you
Hmm.
don't know what someone's gonna, you don't know what someone's gonna be like. Well, take the $100,000 film, take the $500,000 film, take the $3 million film. And as a, and I've been at this industry for a long time, but I'm still, not having done my first feature yet. You're going to Cannes to figure out, and you're talking to other filmmakers to figure out what the next step is. It's it's like throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing if it will stick. That was a weird way of answering that, but that was my answer.
That was an awesome answer, frankly. And I
Okay.
want to say, like, also, we had talked about having the support network of other female filmmakers and producers.
Yes.
And you mentioned that even before with, like, reaching out to some. It's like, um, for anybody in the audience who might be going like, well, I'm not a female filmmaker, so what's it's like, listen, here's, like, as Alexis said, the, like, so much about it, it's scrappy. It's friendships,
Yes.
it's interpersonal, it literally can come down to if you click with somebody. Like, and
Yes.
it's like, it's like, all right, well, what is there about you? It's like, it might even be as simple as you reach out to somebody and just be like, I really like this obscure film that nobody asks you about because you were in something else bigger, and that can
Yeah.
mean a lot to that person who has a body of work that they care about, to know that someone saw more than just the one, like, the brief moment that they were in a Star Wars movie. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
there's an actor who was at Cannes who I listened to, like, I sat in on an interview with them, and they were talking about their acting because they're predominantly known as an actor, but they also, like, wrote and produced a feature. And if I had been doing that interview, I would, like, not that the interviewer did a bad job, but I really was interested to say, like, hey, you're usually an actor, you weren't in this, you produced it and wrote it and gave it to somebody else to direct. What was that like? And
Yeah.
even with what Alexis just said of, if you've got 5 scripts, which baby do you give birth to first? It's like, that's such a
Yeah.
great way to phrase it, because you might even be more interested in one. You might be thinking, I think I'm going to this, but then you get an opportunity for the other one. Someone says, no, 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 that's the one. Do that now. And it can add clarity just when you're talking to these other people who are in the
Yeah.
same field. And it's like, look, one of the things that I got out of Cannes also is just how many movies get made every year. Like, just
Oh yeah.
ones that I like, that even I, like, I hadn't heard of. I was like, oh, most of the movies that come out I've never even heard of, and which I
Mhm.
kind of knew was true. But when you walk through the March to Film and you see
Yeah.
all of them, and it
Yeah.
just kind of makes you realize, oh, a lot of the time these distributors are essentially, like, they're trying to get the work done too. They do
Yeah.
several projects a year or even a month. And that, in a way where I was like, oh, there's so much of this, also is encouraging to see that, oh, I guess, law of averages, I got more of a shot here. um
Yeah. I think you're also right with saying they're making so many films, and they make a lot of films for low budgets, and they put it out there because some of the films are not, they don't look the greatest, and some of them look amazing. So I've seen, like, I had a friend who had a film, walking by, and his posters in the marche, and I'm like, oh, cool, like, and he had, like, a good cast. It was a good film, but next to it, you're like, they're just pulling stuff. They're trying to get. I I can't speak for the distributors, but I think a lot of them are trying to do really good movies. But some of these distributors are putting out stuff where you're like, I would never watch that. So, like you said, there's so many movies getting out there for so many low budget films that it does actually make you go, I can do this. If they did that for $200,000, what says I can't? What in the world says that I can't do that? And then you look at a $200,000 film, which is really low budget, but you also see about the people that you can have created to be in your network, in your world. And maybe your $200,000 budget looks like a $400,000 budget because of the people you've learned from and have been around you. I think also a lot of people are like, oh, I gotta get this money. I gotta get this money. What am I gonna do with talking to investors? But is the film good enough? It's like, all right, slow down. If your film is good enough, that will speak for itself. But I am learning that these people, these distribution companies, the financiers, the people that are that doorway into the next room of making a film, when the film is acknowledged as being good, what's left over? It's you. So if you sit there and you're like, oh God, I need you to like this and I want to do this, they're going to judge their decision on how you're acting. So you have to go into the room. They are investing in you. And that's something that I've really learned. And over the years, my confidence level has, especially with the gesture and the word, has shot up. Because I was able to get Paul Dooley, James Michael Tyler, all these actors in my film, and their decision to trust me and my writing helped my confidence. So these investors, these distribution companies are going to say, I'm going to bet on her. So I think a lot of people don't realize that when you're walking in those rooms, bet on yourself. It's so important to bet on yourself, not just the project you're bringing. So important. That's what I'm learning.
In some ways, that is so encouraging and frightening of how much of it can get down to who you are as an artist and as a person. And although I haven't been doing the types of meetings that you have, one thing I can pretty much guarantee is that these people can smell desperation and anxiety.
Yes.
And
yes.
And that's something to be careful about, because there are the horror stories of bad distribution deals and that kind of thing. And if they are able, like if you get into the room with the wrong person and they know that and they can just tell like that you're riddled with anxiety, there's like a crazy amount of desperation on you, they might be able to get a better deal for themselves out of you than if you came in acting like you know what you're doing. So that's it's crazy to just still think like there is still that, you know, artist / like rock star element of like, you know, kick the door in and what are you like as a person, you know? It's like whatever your style is, like not kicking the door in, but you know, like just the getting down to, there's still, even with this massive production, there is such thing as the power of the individual's effect on the people in the room.
Yes 100%. There is your confidence, which has grown for me, like I said, from when I was a PA, from when I did my first short, when I did some commercials, when I did all these sort of things. It's funny because you go into these rooms, and the first thing I would say to someone, not them, but to someone listening who's a filmmaker, get a lawyer. Like, you don't need the agent and manager just right away. Like, I was able to get into these rooms without the agent and manager, but get a lawyer. Because once they do start talking to you, and they may ask you for like, oh, I got this agreement and we should do that, get everything read over by your lawyer. The manager and agent can come after. But there's a lot of things we can do ourselves. And I think that comes with time, that comes with experience. Like, I wish, without saying my age, I wish I had been where I am 10, 15 years ago. Because, not that I've wasted time, but because I didn't have the confidence 10 years ago that I have today. And that only came with experience, that only came with jumping in with the sharks, that only came with going, I've never done this. I remember when I did my first professional commercial, I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I was like, okay, I'm in a foreign country. I have crew members that are struggling with me in regards to them thinking they're bigger fish than I am, and I'm the one hiring them. Like people being like, I'm really important. It's like, yeah, okay, I can fire you. Like, but you still get that. You can be in charge and people still test you every step of the way. But that first experience, at the end of the day, when it was done and it was successful, I was like, okay, it's like powering up in a video game. I got a little bit more power. I got a little bit more like, and I don't even play video games, so I don't know where that came from. But yeah, it is like powering up in a video game, getting those things like getting more lives, getting more energy to be knocked down and get back up and go, I'll do it again tomorrow. And if you're really exhausted, go to bed. Take a time to be by yourself because when you get back out there, you can't do it half-assed. You have to be like, okay, I'm going for it because these people can smell the blood in the water. And I'm not saying that all people in these higher echelons are all sharks, but think about yourself. If you meet someone who's like, oh God, you're not going to respect them. They could be the nicest person. You may respect them as a human being and, that sort of stuff, but you're going to judge them for being insecure. They walk up to you, oh, versus, hey, I'm so and so, how you doing? You're going to judge them. You yourself is going to do that. So remember that what you see from someone else from you.
They're not all sharks, but these be shark-infested waters. So swim
Yes.
carefully.
Swim very carefully.
That's all right. So I want to just break down and just brass tacks from the people who are just wondering okay, this is I'm learning a lot here. This is what I'm starving for. This is the stuff that you don't learn in film school, that stuff. Or even being on sets a lot of the time. This is a completely different part. The stuff we're talking about, to reiterate, is stuff that wasn't even part of the initial budget of your short film. All right, this is a different but very real, heavily important aspect of the film industry. This is how it's it gets out there, and how a lot of people.
And this is my experience. Like we were saying previously, and I'm sorry to cut you off. This is my experience. So someone else is going to have a totally different experience than me, and someone might be like, "Yeah." So it's all individually pre-wrapped.
Absolutely. And I think if anybody's wondering also, how can it be so, you have to be the right person, the right place at the right time, right personality, all these all these factors. It's look, you're not filling out a form here. This isn't like you went on a job website and checked a bunch of boxes for what genre your film is and all that kind of stuff. It's people are making case-by-case decisions here, at least a lot of the time. And with that, as you say, this is your experience. There's a lot of consistent themes here that I've heard from more people who are along, in the same stage of this awesome journey as you are, or have floated around it anyway. There's a lot of things that just kind of that ring true based on the experiences of other people I've talked to as well. So that's sort of my endorsement here of what Alexis is saying, as far as me being yeah, no, this is good advice and information. So just for the people who are still trying to envision this, all right, I want you to kind of just set the scene here by some kind of example. You don't have to give names of specific people, but what does this meeting look like? Is it you literally go into a conference room and there's one person, or are you getting lunch and there's five, and one of them's a lawyer, one of them's a distributor? What can this kind of thing even how can someone recognize this moment when they get into it, by your experience?
Like one thing, I was talking to this distribution guy, and I went to lunch with my friend and her friend who's distribution. He's a French distributor, and his friend, and we're sitting having lunch, and an hour, no, 30 minutes into the conversation, we started talking about things, and for an hour and a half, he just schooled me, and not in a negative way. I learned from him. It wasn't schooling in the sense of like, I'm going to school you. But I was just like asking all these questions, like, well, what about this? What about this? What about that? And he was just like, and I was asking him, well, I want to do this and I want to do that with my film. And I, he really just gave me really great information that I could go back to my drawing board and reassess. And then maybe down the road, because we've met, I can say to my friend, I'd really like to talk to this person because we've met, and give him and see if he'd be interested. There's that sort of thing. Another thing could be, hey, I called this person, this filmmaker, this executive producer. I'd like to meet you. I met you at a workshop. Would you be available for a cup of coffee or a drink at the Grand? Okay. We meet. He has 15 minutes. It could be a 15-minute meeting, and you sit there and you talk. And then you figure out whether or not there's that click, because it is about clicking. Other times, hey, you need to meet this person. You sit down at the Grand or the Carlton. The Carlton wasn't open this year, but one of these places, the Martinez. You sit down, and they're kind of like, oh, I have to go to my next meeting. Are you available for dinner tomorrow night? And then you go to dinner, and then they're like, hey, let's have a meeting. It could be a meeting of you two together, or you could say, hey, I'm going to bring this person. Oh, I'm going to bring that person. And it could be a friendship dinner, which will then lead to other things, because that person might say down the road, I really like you. I'd like to work with you. Because it is, for me personally, I don't want to work with someone I don't like. I don't want, of course, you have to trust the person. But even there, you're like, trust is that is its own sticky situation. You have to trust people, but you never know. A lot of people are very good actors. But liking each other and having these meetings that could be sitting at the bar at Mon Nolan's in Cannes, and knowing there's a guy that I know, Paul, and I know every year I can walk into Mon Nolan's and tap him on the shoulder and he'll go, there you are. And I don't know if we'll ever work together, but it's a friendship that will always be there. And every year I go, he's like, you going? I'm going. And maybe one day he'll go, hey, you should meet this person. And he's introduced me to people. It's all about networking. And yeah, there are meetings out there that are about boardrooms, but that's not what Cannes is about. Cannes is not about boardrooms. Cannes is about relationship building.
Well, that once again, we're getting a lot of encouraging and scary stuff here because it's not a format, people. It's a funnel, and and just to like, for my experience, something like there's a lot I'm learning from you here, but for a lot of the experience that I've had that I can just kind of echo a little bit is, there have been so many meaningful friendships and relationships that I've had through film where it's the kind of thing that as a kid I hoped someday I'd have like this type of camaraderie or just whatever it is. It's not like, we're all trying to make movies, all right? We're all trying to get our projects done and stuff. But like, it's my experience has been that if the only thing going on in your head when you're talking to somebody is what you can get out of them, then first off, you're probably less likely to come by that thing by honest means, in my observation. And if you also, there are other there's a hot take here as a filmmaker. There are other things in life besides film, and they might not last as long, but that doesn't make them without value. I think a nice thing that's happened in this conversation is throughout all of it, there's been this thread that you've brought through it, that you clearly show in your work when you're talking about it, when you're talking about the other people you've worked with, but that friendship, that support network, the ways that you can connect with people, whether you have something in common or you're thrilled by the opposite of something. There's so much there where it's like, there's an enrichment to life that can happen through film. And a lot of people I believe, wonder about that. You hear a lot of cynical, dark stories about all this stuff, and those are true stories,
Yeah.
But if it was all like that, it'd be my point is there are good things here worth being a part of in this. It's not all horrible. There's wonderful rewards and enrichment to be had, and often that is, like you said, you're at a cafe or a bar or something in Cannes at 2 a.m., it's raining, and you're having a wonderful conversation about a movie that neither of you are trying to make, that you both just saw, because you all have this love for cinema or whatever it is that you're connecting on. And through that, really interesting, meaningful connections are made. So that's 100%. Been my experience, and I'm glad that you've had that experience as well. More than me at this point.
10 wonderful years, I can.
And many more to come. And speaking of things to come, your short film is going to be screening in Paris this September. For those of you in the future, is 2022. So congratulations for that as well.
Thank you. And
go ahead.
Side note, I'm about to have someone come over. My cinematographer is actually coming over very soon. So FYI, there might be a knock at the door.
All right. Well, perfect, because I'm wrapping us up here now.
Good.
I'm just going to say, everybody, there's links to all kind of stuff in the description here. Watch the film, listen to the other podcast if you're interested to learn more about the production side of that film. We've dipped into that as far as it relates. At this point, if you're hearing this, you've heard the rest of the podcast. So what? I don't know what I'm telling you. But either way, Alexis, thank you so much for your time here on this podcast. I've enjoyed this for me has been one of those experiences that we just waxed eloquent about. I've enjoyed speaking to you so much every time I've talked to you, especially with this time that an extended longer conversation, which is great.
No, yes, and it's wonderful to meet people at Cannes like yourself and connect afterwards, because a lot of people, and I can sometimes be terrible at it, where I'm like, oh, gotta email that person and email that person, but it's great when it's natural and just happens, and people do it because they're not wondering. There's a innocence to it. I mean, it's wonderful coming on and talking to you because of the podcast, but there was, like with our conversation, it was just a nice conversation that we're not going, oh, what can that person do for me? Because that is, so many people in the industry is like, oh, I'm going to get something from them. And instead, it's here, we're sharing information. We're telling about the experience that both of us had and how it could benefit other people. And I think that's extremely important, especially in this industry, to, as they say, send the elevator down to bring someone back up, because we have worked so hard at our careers, and I've been doing this for a long time. I started when I was 18, and to be able to see the people that have actually brought me ahead with them, it's our duty to turn around and bring someone up with us.
Wise, wonderful words, which I agree with. So thank you again for being on the podcast with us. We can also have, if you want to follow Alexis or learn anything about them, otherwise we'll have those in the description as well, so we don't have to, clunkily say @31 blah, which I usually do. But we're evolving the podcast, and we're just going to have the link down there for you. You know how the internet works if you found this. So we're gonna have that available for you. This was awesome. This is everything I hoped it would be, and I really want to have you on again sometime, especially for your upcoming project with this documentary that you've teased us with. So once you're ready to talk about that, please, please, please come on again. It would be really great to talk with you about that project.
I'd love to.
Excellent.
I'd love to. I have the documentary and I have a feature. So there's lots of fun things coming up.
Well,
lots of fun things. And I hope people enjoy my friend Skid's podcast about the previous stuff that we talked about the making of it. So thank you very much for actually sharing it with everyone.
Absolutely. It was my pleasure to experience it, and it informed a lot of the questions I was going to ask you to figure out how to, to really delve into this topic. So my goal with this podcast is my goal with this podcast was what podcast would I want to listen to before trying to distribute a film and or go to the Cannes Film Festival. So, and I think that we did that. So thank you very much. I hope you have a good rest of your afternoon.
I will. I'm going to hang out with my cinematographer, Matt Rogers from Gesture and the Word, and we're going to talk about the next projects. So I'm excited.
Very exciting.
It's, again, like having someone that you adore that's your cinematographer. What a wonderful life.